Good morning, Nick Ayton. Those of you who may have watched some of my walk and talks about capital raising, about helping founders get through the tricky process of raising capital, a lot of people have said, can we have a bit more detail? Can you dig into it a bit more? Can you give us specific examples? The answer is yes, I can. But what I'd like to do is baseline a few things first. It's tough being an entrepreneur. I started my entrepreneurial career in 1981 with my first tech firm, and in the 80s it was just a roller coaster as the advent of personal computing. I did my earlier career in mainframes, and that dates me, of course, and it was a roller coaster of a decade, and I got involved in 6 startups, 3 or 4 of my own. And yeah, as you know, startups and new businesses, the failure rate is very high, and in the technology space it was just the same. The reason companies go out of business quite often is not because of the idea, sometimes that's bad, not because of the founders, sometimes they're not cohesive and experienced enough, but more often than not it's capital, it's cash flow. They run out of cash and they just underestimate the task, and that's one of the things we can talk about. In my life I've had probably a dozen startups. I've had a couple of exits. I've had quite a number of failures. I've raised in excess of $50 million for my own ventures, one of which was a leverage buyout about 20 years ago. I work with founders and teams, and for each one of those, over the last, 7-8 years, we've managed to secure them term sheets for all of them, and small amounts of investment to give them runway as well. And that's the job, really. That's my job, is to create the conditions and prepare the founders and their proposition to get in front of the right investors and to do a good job, to be impressive, to last the course. And the job of the founding team, having got the term sheet, is to close it. It's not my job because I don't own the equity in the company. It's not my company. I will support, but ultimately the founders have to close it. And the ideal situation is you manage to get them more than one term sheet, and with a term sheet in hand, which is backed by due diligence, it's a very powerful instrument from which to generate other conversations. So what I've done is I've distilled and bottled the knowledge and experience I have for helping founders get through the capital raising process. I know how hard it is. The complaints and the moans and groans from founders is, it takes so long. Why does it take so long? The other complaint is the due diligence process is complicated. If you're going the VC route, they never get back to you. I send my pitch deck around and nobody ever gets back to me. So it's a long list of complaints, and I get it. What I have in mind is I'm going to run a YouTube series of discussions that will shed light on the things that you can do to 10x or 5x your chances of success and ultimately get money in the bank from investors. I do find that there's an awful lot of things that founders are lacking. Some are not ready. They have big gaps in their data sets. It's not clear quite often to the investor. And also the specific narrative and story obviously has to be geared to specific investor communities. So what I'm prepared to do is run this video on YouTube, and if you subscribe to the channel and leave me your email address, I will send you a checklist of the 10 things that you must do before you start your journey for capital raising. And then when you consume that, we should have a chat. Talk soon.